Stop. Listen. Pay attention. Chosen one. This is not background noise, and it is not another message drifting past you. It is precise. It lands where you are standing. You felt the interruption before you heard the words, a pause in the inner static that told you to stay right here. There has been a quiet pressure moving through your days. Not dramatic, not loud, just persistent. Fatigue that does not match your effort. A sense of carrying weight without a clear source. Moments where you are surrounded by people yet feel distinctly alone. You have tried to name it as stress, as timing, as something that will pass if you just push through. But it has not fully passed, and you noticed that. You have also noticed something else. Despite the pressure, you did not break. You kept showing up. You stayed functional when it would have been reasonable to withdraw. Even in confusion, you remained oriented. That contradiction is part of why this message is for you. This is not meant to alarm you. There is no threat hidden in what I am saying. The urgency you feel is not danger. It is relevance. When something matters, your attention tightens. Your system recognizes that the moment is important before your mind explains why. You may have questioned your own reactions recently. Why small things felt heavier than expected. Why rest did not fully restore you. Why your thoughts circled the same themes without resolution. None of that means you are failing or losing clarity. It means something specific has been occurring around you and within you that has not yet been named. This message is intentional. It is not a general encouragement, and it is not an abstract reflection. It is calibrated to your recent experience. The timing is not symbolic, it is practical. You are ready to understand something you have already lived through. I will not reveal everything at once. Clarity works best when it arrives in sequence. What matters right now is this. What you felt was real. What you carried was not random, and the fact that you are still steady tells a story about who you are beneath effort and emotion. Stay with me. You do not need to strain. You do not need to agree. Just remain present. What comes next will put language to what you already sensed, but could not yet place. This message is not for everyone who happens to hear it. It is not for those looking for stimulation or reassurance. It is for you because what occurred did not pass near you. It involved you directly. There is no ambiguity here, and there is no need for you to wonder if you qualify. You are addressed as Chosen One, not as a title to aspire to, but as a description of how your system already functions. You did not volunteer for this role. You did not claim it out loud. It revealed itself through how you responded when pressure arrived without explanation. What happened required a specific kind of internal structure, not bravado, not belief, structure, the kind that stays intact under strain without needing constant reinforcement. You did not consciously prepare for what you moved through yet. When it came, something in you already knew how to hold steady. That is the point many miss. They assume strength must be activated, summoned, or performed. Yours did not switch on. It was already there. While your conscious mind tried to make sense of events, your deeper systems were regulating, quietly absorbing impact, preventing collapse. You did not feel powerful. You felt tired, confused, sometimes numb. And still, you remained upright. This message is for you because your experience cannot be explained by effort alone. Many people work hard. Many people endure stress. Fewer maintain internal coherence when clarity is delayed and support feels thin. You did not spiral into panic. You did not abandon yourself. You stayed present even when you did not feel certain. That tells us something important. Your struggle was conscious. Your stability was unconscious. You wrestled with questions, but your foundation did not wobble. That separation matters. It is the mark of someone whose resilience is not dependent on mood or circumstance. You may have thought you were barely holding things together. From the inside, it often feels that way. But what actually occurred was containment. You contained the pressure without dramatizing it, without projecting it outward, without letting it fracture your identity. This is why the message must be clear. You are not here because you searched for meaning. You are here because your life demonstrated it. The events you moved through were not testing your worth. They were revealing your baseline. And that baseline is rare, not elevated, not superior. Rare in the sense that it is uncommon for someone to remain internally aligned while navigating unresolved tension. You did not harden. You did not dissociate. You stayed yourself. That is who this is for. There is one symptom you recognized immediately, even if you tried to minimize it. A sense of heaviness that did not belong to any single event. It showed up in your body as much as in your thoughts. You woke up already tired. Your energy felt compressed, not depleted, as if something was pressing inward rather than draining you outward. You may have judged that sensation harshly. You may have told yourself you were overthinking, becoming less resilient, losing momentum. You might have compared yourself to earlier versions of you and wondered why everything seemed to require more effort now. That interpretation was understandable, but it was inaccurate. That heaviness was not a flaw. It was a signal. Signals are often misunderstood because they do not announce themselves clearly. They arrive as discomfort, friction, or delay. This one arrived as weight, not emotional sadness, not physical illness. Weight, a sense that movement required intention instead of momentum. What you were feeling was pressure related to transition. Not the dramatic kind people imagine, but the structural kind that occurs when something internal is being recalibrated. When an internal system adjusts, it temporarily resists ease. Old rhythms stop working before new ones fully settle. That is why rest did not fully resolve it. Sleep helped, but did not clear it. Distraction softened it, but did not remove it. The signal remained because it was not asking to be avoided. It was asking to be understood. Your body and mind were communicating that you were moving through a narrowing. Not a breakdown, a narrowing. Fewer options felt viable. Fewer distractions felt satisfying. Your tolerance for noise pretense or unnecessary engagement dropped. That was not regression. That was refinement. You were not becoming weaker. You were becoming more precise. Precision often feels like loss before it feels like clarity. When your system stops tolerating what once passed unnoticed, it can feel like fragility. In truth, it is sensitivity aligning with purpose. The pressure you felt was the friction between who you are no longer meant to be and who you are stabilizing into. This is why self-judgment did not help. You were not failing to cope. You were adjusting capacity. And adjustment is rarely comfortable in real time. Nothing about that heaviness meant something was wrong with you. It meant something was changing in how you carry yourself through the world. The signal was not asking you to push harder or give up. It was asking you to pause long enough to recognize that the internal conditions had shifted. Once that is understood, the sensation stops feeling like a problem and starts making sense as information. And that prepares you for what comes next. What you were responding to did not come from inside you, even though it registered there. The pressure you felt was not self-generated rumination or ordinary stress accumulating over time. It arrived with timing. It arrived with coordination. And it arrived while you were already carrying responsibility. This matters. There was an invisible layer of demand placed around you recently. Not symbolic, not imagined. A real convergence of expectations, interruptions, emotional pulls, and unresolved situations that compressed your attention from multiple angles at once. None of them alone would have been overwhelming. Together, they created a sustained load. You did not collapse under it. That is the part that deserves careful attention. Under sustained pressure, most people show clear signs of dysfunction. They become reactive. They externalize blame. They withdraw completely or overextend until burnout forces a stop. You did not do that. You adapted quietly. You kept showing up to what needed you. You maintained basic order. You remained reachable. Even when your inner resources felt tight, your outer behavior stayed coherent. That tells us the pressure was real because it demanded regulation. And it tells us something deeper about you because regulation held. This pressure was not random in timing. It came during a period when you were already reevaluating direction, boundaries, and meaning. That overlap is important. Pressure often intensifies when internal alignment is forming because misaligned elements begin to lose their grip at the same time new structures are not yet fully visible. What confronted you was not dramatic opposition. It was cumulative friction, small disruptions, delays that tested patience, emotional requests that required discernment, moments where your capacity was assumed rather than protected. All of it happened close enough together that your system had to prioritize stability over expression. And you did. You did not announce what you were carrying. You did not dramatize it. You absorbed it. That does not mean you were unaffected. It means you remained functional while being affected. That distinction is critical. Many people mistake functionality for ease. They assume that if someone is still standing, nothing serious is happening. In reality, staying functional under pressure requires internal organization. It requires a baseline of self-regulation that does not depend on ideal conditions. You demonstrated that baseline without needing to name it. This was a confrontation not with an enemy, but with capacity, with how much could be placed on you before something gave. And what revealed itself was not fracture, but structure. That is the context you need as we move forward. The pressure you move through can be understood clearly when it is broken down into how it actually showed up in your life. Not as abstract ideas, but as lived experiences that tested different parts of your inner system. None of these were extreme on their own. Their power came from accumulation. The first pressure point was doubt. Not loud doubt that shouts accusations, but quiet doubt that asks subtle questions. Questions about timing, about whether your effort was landing, about whether your sense of direction was still accurate. This doubt did not paralyze you, but it lingered. It tried to erode confidence through repetition rather than force. And yet you did not abandon your values or reverse course impulsively. You questioned, but you did not unravel. That shows internal trust remained intact even while clarity was temporarily blurred. The second pressure point was fear, though it did not look like panic. It appeared as anticipation, a low-level vigilance, a sense that something could go wrong if you misstepped, even though nothing specific was threatening. This kind of fear often leads people to overcorrect or freeze. You did neither. You became more measured. You slowed decisions without avoiding them. Fear passed through you without taking the wheel. The third pressure point was energy drain. Not exhaustion from effort, but depletion from containment. Holding things together costs energy, especially when you don't have space to fully express what you are carrying. You felt this as reduced enthusiasm, shortened tolerance, and a need for solitude that felt unfamiliar. Still, you did not lash out or disconnect entirely. You managed your output. You conserved where needed. That is regulation, not withdrawal. The fourth pressure point was isolation. Even if people were around you, there was a sense that no one could fully meet you where you were. Conversations stayed surface level when you needed depth. Support felt well-intentioned, but misaligned. This kind of isolation often drives people to overshare or shut down completely. You did neither. You accepted the distance without turning it into resentment or self-pity. You stayed relational without overexposing yourself. The fifth pressure point was delay. Things that should have resolved did not. Answers took longer. Progress felt stalled at moments when momentum was expected. Delay is one of the most destabilizing forces because it tempts people to doubt their own judgment retroactively. You felt the frustration, but you did not rewrite your past decisions in a moment of impatience. You waited without becoming passive. You remained engaged without forcing outcomes. What matters is not that you experienced these pressures. Many people do. What matters is how your system responded across all of them at once. You did not excel in one area and collapse in another. You stayed moderately stable everywhere. No dramatic spikes, no sharp drops. That kind of evenness under strain is uncommon. You regulated internally instead of performing strength externally. You adjusted expectations instead of demanding relief. You stayed oriented to reality instead of escaping into fantasy or despair. This is not something you learned recently. It is how you are built. Each pressure point tested a different layer of you. Doubt tested trust. Fear tested courage. Energy drain tested sustainability. Isolation tested self-connection. Delay tested patience. None of them found you hollow. This is not about endurance as suffering. It is about coherence. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions remained aligned enough to prevent fragmentation. You did not become someone else just to survive the moment. You remained you. Understanding this matters because it reframes the entire experience. You were not barely holding on. You were actively stabilizing a complex internal environment under load. That takes intelligence maturity and a nervous system capable of nuance. This is why what you went through did not mark you. It passed through you without leaving distortion. And that tells us something precise about your capacity as we move into the next layer of understanding. Now comes the part where understanding replaces endurance. When you look back at what occurred with a little distance, a pattern becomes visible. Not a dramatic turning point, but a consistent response. You did not rely on luck. You did not benefit from unusually easy circumstances. What carried you through was internal coherence. Your thoughts did not fully agree, your emotions did not always feel settled, but they stayed in conversation with each other. Nothing split off. This is important because many explanations people reach for do not apply here. It was not coincidence that you stayed upright. It was not personality optimism. It was not blind persistence. Those explanations collapse under closer inspection. They do not account for the steadiness you maintained while answers were incomplete. What actually occurred was a quiet demonstration of resilience that does not announce itself. You evaluated situations without rushing to conclusions. You allowed uncertainty without panicking about it. You adjusted pace without abandoning direction. These are not dramatic skills. They are foundational ones. When pressure lifts even slightly, people often notice how reactive they were while inside it. You noticed something different. You noticed that despite the strain, you were still yourself. You recognized that you did not have to repair damage afterward. There was no fallout to clean up, no relationship scorched, no irreversible decisions made in desperation. That absence of damage is not accidental. It confirms that your internal systems were working even when they felt stretched. Your sense of self did not fragment. Your values did not flip under stress. You did not betray your own boundaries to relieve discomfort. These are measurable outcomes, not abstract praise. This is where explanations involving chance or external rescue fall away. They are unnecessary. The evidence points inward, to regulation, to integration, to a nervous system that can hold complexity without collapsing into extremes. You may realize now that the experience did not demand recovery in the way a breakdown does. You were tired, yes. You needed rest. But you did not need to rebuild yourself. That distinction matters more than most people understand. What you went through functioned more like a review than a trial, a confirmation rather than a correction. It revealed that your internal architecture could support more than you consciously trusted it to. This realization does not inflate you. It grounds you. It removes the need to dramatize what happened or diminish it. You can acknowledge it accurately. You did not survive because circumstances spared you. You remained intact because your system was already organized to do so. That is the confirmation. When you compare your response to what is more common, the difference becomes clear without needing exaggeration. Under far less pressure, many people lose orientation. They become reactive, impulsive, or withdrawn. Their attention fractures. Their sense of self narrows until everything feels personal or threatening. That did not happen to you. You stayed present in your body. You continued to engage with daily responsibilities. You did not escalate small frustrations into defining narratives about your life. Even when you felt strain, you maintained perspective. That is not the typical response to sustained ambiguity and load. This is not about being better than others. It is about recognizing rarity in function. Most systems are designed to operate well under either clarity or support. When both are reduced at the same time, stability usually declines. You experienced reduced clarity and limited support simultaneously, and yet your internal alignment held. Many people under similar conditions seek relief through distraction, numbing, or dramatic change. They quit things abruptly. They provoke conflict. They seek validation to regulate their own uncertainty. You did not. You tolerated the discomfort of not knowing without creating chaos to escape it. That tolerance is uncommon. It points to an ability to stay oriented even when feedback is delayed, to remain grounded without external reassurance, to let time do its work without forcing premature resolution. These are not traits that draw attention. They are not celebrated loudly. But they are essential in moments that require steadiness over display. You did not need to be seen as strong. You did not need to be right. You needed to remain intact, and you did. This is where rarity shows itself, not in intensity, but in consistency, not in dramatic resilience, but in sustained presence. Many people can rise briefly under pressure. Fewer can remain even when nothing is visibly improving yet. You did not collapse inward or lash outward. You stayed balanced enough to continue living your life while something unresolved moved through you. That balance is not common because it requires integration across thought, emotion, and behavior. Recognizing this does not elevate you above anyone. It simply places you accurately. It explains why the experience felt isolating at times. When your system operates this way, fewer people can mirror it back to you. This understanding prepares you for the next step. Not action, not change, but clarity about what your steadiness actually represents. What you demonstrated was not a peak state. It was not an activated mode you entered temporarily and will need to summon again. It was your baseline. That distinction changes everything. Your stability did not come from effort. It came from structure that was already in place. From habits of thought that do not spiral when challenged. From emotional patterns that allow feeling without surrendering control. From an inner framework that prefers coherence over reaction. This means you were not rising to meet the moment. The moment was revealing what you are already prepared to carry. Many people mistake intensity for strength. They assume power only appears when something dramatic happens. In reality, the most reliable strength is quiet and constant. It shows itself when pressure increases and nothing inside you needs to rearrange drastically to cope. That is what occurred here. You did not need to reinvent yourself. You did not need to access a hidden reserve. You simply continued operating as you are, and that was sufficient. That tells us that your development has been gradual, intentional, and real. You have been building capacity long before you knew you would need it. This is why the experience did not feel heroic. It felt heavy. It felt unclear. It felt ordinary in the sense that you still had to handle daily life while carrying something extra. Baseline strength rarely feels impressive from the inside. It feels like responsibility. What you carry is not raw force. It is maturity. The ability to hold complexity without demanding immediate resolution. The ability to stay aligned without constant certainty. The ability to let time pass without interpreting delay as failure. This is not accidental. It comes from experience integrated properly, from lessons learned without becoming rigid, from boundaries formed without becoming closed, from awareness developed without becoming anxious. You are not waiting to become someone else. You are not on the verge of awakening into a different version of yourself. You are already functioning from the level you thought you were approaching. Understanding this allows you to stop searching for proof of strength. The evidence has already passed through your life quietly. It showed up in how little needed to be repaired afterward. This is who you are when things are unmarked, unresolved, and unannounced. And that clarity changes how you move forward. Now the task is not to heighten your awareness or sharpen your vigilance. It is to integrate what you understand without turning it into strain. Integration is quiet. It looks like small practical adjustments that respect your capacity instead of testing it. First, rest without justification. Not recovery rest as if something is broken, but maintenance rest. Let your nervous system settle without needing to earn it. This kind of rest restores precision, not just energy. Second, practice discernment with your attention. You do not need to process everything that reaches you. Some inputs are not problems to solve. They are noise to pass through. Reducing unnecessary engagement is not avoidance. It is alignment. Third, refine boundaries gently. You do not need to explain every limit or defend every pause. Allow yourself to be less available where availability costs coherence. Boundaries protect clarity more than they protect time. Fourth, be patient with timing. What has been delayed is not stalled. Delay is sometimes a function of alignment catching up with intention. Resist the urge to force conclusions simply to relieve tension. Clarity that arrives naturally lasts longer. Fifth, stay focused on what is directly in front of you, not the whole path, not the outcome. The next reasonable step. Presence is more stabilizing than foresight right now. Let the larger picture remain unfinished without anxiety. Sixth, allow simplicity to return. Eat simply, speak plainly, move your body without performance. These small acts signal safety to your system. They remind you that nothing needs to be proven. The goal is not to monitor yourself constantly. It is to trust the structure that is already proven reliable. You do not need to brace for what comes next. You need to stay available to your own signals without amplifying them. What you went through has already integrated more than you realize. There is nothing to chase, nothing to decode further. Just a steadier way of inhabiting your days. This is how awareness becomes usable instead of overwhelming. And with that, the experience can settle fully into you ready for closure. Take a moment and let this land without trying to do anything with it. What matters now is not analysis and not effort. It is reassurance. You did not miss something. You were not exposed. You did not narrowly escape by chance. You crossed a stretch of pressure without being flagged because your internal structure did not fracture under it. That is the simple truth at the center of everything you have just heard. You are not carrying residue from what happened. There is no mark on you that needs removal. What passed through you did not attach itself. It tested coherence, found it intact, and moved on. That is why there is no aftermath to clean up. No dramatic lesson to extract. Just clarity. If you feel quieter now, that is appropriate. Quiet is not absence. It is resolution. You are allowed to stand where you are without scanning for the next disruption. You are allowed to move forward without rehearsing explanations. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing needs to be outrun. Your steadiness already answered what needed answering. Hold these affirmations gently, not as mantras to repeat, but as recognitions. You remained intact under pressure. Your stability is not accidental. What did not mark you cannot define you. Let that be enough. If this message named something you lived through but never articulated, mark it. Not publicly if you do not want to. Even a small acknowledgement matters. In the comments, you can simply write, "I remember," or 777. That is not for me. It is for you a quiet confirmation that you recognized yourself in this moment. If you choose to stay connected, subscribe. Not for urgency, not out of fear of missing something, but because this space speaks in a language your system already understands. Future messages will continue from this same grounded place, without escalation, without noise. And now, you can exhale. You crossed unmarked. What was meant to catch you did not. You are still here, steady, clear, and unaltered. That is the end of this transmission.